Greetings fellow Decepticons, SoundBlaster1987 here with my December vlog for 2025 and my Christmas special for this year. Today I'll be going over the history of Dr. Seuss's The Grinch. Now, this is going to be a brief overview of the character, not a definitive deep dive into the background of each adaptation of his story and such. So, the Grinch, otherwise known as Ethan Grinch Who in the live-action Jim Carrey version, was basically a member of the community of the Whos of Whoville, possibly the same ones from Horton Hears a Who, the other Dr. Seuss storyline, who was born with a genetic mutation of green fur instead of the normal human-like complexion and such like the Whos are known for. Ostracized and bullied and such like as a very young child, he moved to the top of Mount Crumpit when he was 8 years old to get away from the rest of the Who so he could be left alone. At some point he adopted a dog called Max, who is sometimes a bit abusive to, but is otherwise the Grinch's best/only friend of the franchise. The original Grinch storyline came out in the 1957 How the Grinch Stole Christmas storybook by Dr. Seuss, and it was eventually, of course, adapted for TV and other such internet media formats, such as the 1968 Chuck Jones animated special, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, in which the Grinch himself was voiced by Boris Karloff, although the singing components were taken over by a different actor because Boris couldn't sing. But anyway, Chuck Jones, for those who don't know, is also one of the 6 people responsible for the Looney Tunes franchise, along with Fritz Freeling, Robert McKimson, and a couple of other people that I'll get into in separate videos because, you know, those are more appropriate for Foghorn, Leghorn, and Bugs Bunny type discussions. But anyway, the Chuck Jones animated The Grinch animated movie is partly responsible for a lot of internet memes of the Grinch's slow motion, very ugly looking smile, which was used several times in various parody sequences, included by Lois Griffin in Family Guy in one episode. And of course there was the 1990s live-action version in which the Grinch was portrayed by Jim Carrey, who was also obviously Dr. Eggman in the Sonic the Hedgehog movies, and several other famous heroes and villains across fictional history, but I'll get into him another time. But yes, the live-action How the Grinch Stole Christmas movie, which is now on Disney Plus for those that want to watch it. This was also where the most infamous version of the Mayor of Whoville's You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch song came from, which was later parodied by the Transformers voice actor Gary Chalk in his annual Christmas message to David Cage, the voice of Beast Wars Megatron. So he did a Beast Wars version of the song called You're a Mean One, Megatron, basically reworded the Grinch song into a Beast Wars version. But I'll go into that at a separate time. So, yes, like I say, bullied and ostracized for his green fur and very long hairy fingertips growing up, the Grinch moved at the age of 8 to Mount Crumpit so he could get away from all the chaos of Whoville, and years of isolation basically caused him to hate Christmas almost as much as Ebenezer Scrooge does, to the point where he ended up basically having had enough of it altogether at one point and decided to just ruin Christmas for everybody as revenge for how they made him feel about Christmas after all these years of isolation on Mount Crumpit. So one day the Grinch decided to dress up as Santa Claus with his dog Max wearing a fake reindeer antler, and he broke into everybody's houses, stealing everything and taking all the presents for trees and even some of their favourite snacks. There was a famous scene in the Chuck Jones animated one where he uses a horseshoe magnet to steal the nails for sticking all the Christmas stockings onto the fireplace, holding open a big burlap sack underneath for the stockings to fall into as he steals the nails, keeping them in place. He even redirects the train track going underneath the Christmas tree into his burlap sack to steal the train in one scene, and he slithers around on the floor underneath the tree like a snake in one scene as well. Not accurate to how actual snakes move, I have to admit, but it was an impressive bit of animation from Chuck Jones, I must say. But in addition to the Chuck Jones and Jim Carrey version of The Grinch, there was also the 2018 Illumination Studios version, continuing the trend of Illumination making feature-length animated movies out of the Despicable Me style 3D CGI based on Dr. Seuss's books, having already done Valorax and Horton Hears a Who by this point of the storyline. So, in the Illumination version of the Grinch himself is voiced by none other than Benedict Cumberbatch, who some of you may know as the voice of Doctor Strange in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. But yes, the Illumination Grinch apparently was a bit less abusive to Max than the live-action and Chuck Jones Grinch variants were, not picking him up by the scruff of his neck or yelling at him in point-blank range and such like the Chuck Jones Grinch. And of course, the more recent Asda and McDonald's adverts from 2025 have both capitalised on the Grinch's popularity as a Christmas-hating character. In addition to all of that, there have been a few video games based on the Jim Carrey and Illumination Grinch variants, and of course the Grinch has appeared in other Dr. Seuss collective effort video games and parody sequences. For example, there's a ice skating performance in one episode of The Simpsons with a villainous character called the Grumble, who's a clear parody of the Grinch, being a Christmas-hating green furry animal who is trying to ruin everything. And there was, of course, the Grinch's The Cat in the Hat animated special, which crosses over with the original 1970s The Cat in the Hat animated series with the Chuck Jones 1968 Grinch variant. Admittedly, I haven't properly seen the Illumination Grinch movie or the Grinch's The Cat in the Hat special, but I do know they exist. So, that more or less concludes my, look back at the Grinch. Of course, the original 1957 storybook was originally done in black and white, but it was later done in various coloured forms, and of course there are merchandise, plush toys, and Christmas decorations and ornaments and such like with the Grinch's face all over them. So I would highly recommend watching pretty much any version of the Grinch's animated adaptations if you get the chance. So, that concludes my, videos for this year. I'll be taking a short hiatus from December 26th to early January to rest and recover over Christmas. Then my channel will be back at full operational capacity in January, when I'll be starting off with reviewing the Saint Seiya model kit, Scorpio Milo from the Champion Class Blokey's model kit line. And my first January vlog will be the history of Hermione Granger from the Harry Potter franchise. Till then, till all are one. Merry Christmas, one and all.